Good evening. The Bothell Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, November 5th will come to order. Let the record show that all members of the Planning Commission are present and accounted for except for Commissioner Clark, who's absent and excused. Are there any non-agenda public comments? Hearing none, we have no minutes to approve. Is there any new business? Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and open our continued public hearing on the 2015 Periodic Plan and Code Update. And prior to a presentation by Dave, I'll open this to the public. Is there any public comment, or would you prefer to hold your comment until later?
I'd like to hold my comments till later if it pleases you guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
So at this point, we'll move forward with a presentation from Dave Boyd as we open our continued public hearing. Dave.
Thank you, and good evening. Just have a brief presentation tonight. Oops. Tonight we are having our initial Planning Commission public hearing on the Shelton View, Meridian, 3rd Avenue Southeast, Maywood, Beckstrom, and Queensboro, Brentwood, Crystal Springs subarea plans. 3 subarea plans as part of the ongoing 2015 periodic plan and code update. The subarea plans, since you've already been introduced, this is a bit of a repeat, but the purpose of the 17 subarea plans is to shape development in those subareas in a manner that reflects their diversity and establishes the desired character for each subarea. They provide a refinement of the planning area-wide elements that you've been going through, and they establish the specific land use designations for properties. So tonight we're going to be looking at the Shelton View Meridian is first up, Maywood, Beckstrom, and Queensboro, Brentwood, Crystal Springs subareas. And actually, I'm going to propose in my presentation, I'm going to change the order and go with Shelton View, then Queensboro, and wind up with Maywood. So the subarea plans have a similar approach to the planning area wide elements. We're proposing some language that's modified to reflect current condition, matched previously supported Planning Commission recommendations for the approved elements for your preliminary approval of the elements. And we're paring down from 4 figures per subarea to 3. I think last time when Bruce did his initial subarea plans, the direction was that we were going to try to get it down to 2, but we've decided to go with 3, as your packets show. For the majority of the subareas, the city isn't proposing, at least staff isn't proposing changes to existing land use designations. With the main exceptions are Canyon Park and Country Village, but we have received and are continuing to receive requests and interest from property owners for some changes in their land use designations as the subareas are discussed. And I think we'll have one continued discussion tonight and possibly one other. And with these property owner requests, if the Planning Commission chooses to move forward with any land use designation amendments, then we will have to do noticing per the municipal code that requires noticing for 21 days prior to the subsequent hearing. So in a way, I think technically these are more study sessions, these initial reviews, and then the true hearing that meets the noticing requirements would be the subsequent one. So if there are amendments, we will bring those back no earlier than a month from the initial date to provide for the noticing. So first off, we've got Shelton View, Meridian, 3rd Avenue Southeast. Shelton View comprises 581 acres, predominantly single-family residential. Proposed changes include housekeeping amendments, other amendments to reflect some of the preliminary changes that you've already made in planning area-wide elements. Possible boundary changes that will be reviewed in more detail as part of the Canyon Park and Country Village sub-area plans. In the northeast corner of the sub-area, there's a little finger that extends out and encompasses part of the RACOP CB zoning near 228th and Bothell Everett Highway. And we think that it would, the sub-area boundary actually bisects some parcels. So we think it would make sense to actually include those RAC zoned properties in the Canyon Park sub-area, possibly even the OP, as part of that sub-area plan. Similarly, in the southeast corner, for some reason, which I'm not entirely sure of, I'm sure there's some historical reason for this, but a piece of the Country Village property, a corner of it, is in the Shelton View sub-area. We are also looking at some zoning changes in this area and possibly some of the adjacent parcels to the south. So we think it's likely that we'll look at a boundary change there that will put those properties into the Country Village sub-area. But those detailed discussions will happen when those sub-areas come before Planning Commission. So this is just a bit of a heads up that that's likely coming down the pike. So in Shelton View, you received on October 15th, I believe it was, as part of the land use element review, a proposal from Mike Hardman of Coast Equity Partners, who's here tonight, to study 5 parcels on Nike Hill for potential of higher intensity development. And in the proposal, one of the purposes is to help meet the population capacity targets in Snohomish County. The proposal didn't specify any particular zoning changes, and at this point, staff doesn't recommend any specific amendments. Gary Hassler, who's doing the land use element, informs me that they do not believe that this area will be needed to meet our Snohomish County growth targets. So what we're proposing is really taking the lead from the proposal that we've received and that you have in your packet, and that was also distributed on October 15th, to do further study of these parcels. So rather than jump into actual code changes, we think this is an area that really does deserve some more thorough study. The parcels that are identified extend into the Locust 14th Avenue West sub-area, which is in our potential annexation area in Snohomish County. So it would that study would also affect those. The majority of it is in the Shelton View Meridian 3rd Avenue Southeast sub-area. But it also connects with the Neighborhood Activity Center that we discussed in the economic development element that exists around the neighborhood business zone that extends partly into the Shelton View area and the parcels that are identified here, but also extends up into the Queensboro, Brentwood, Crystal Springs sub-area. We also have received an email request that I'll circulate to you for potential rezone in the Queensboro sub-area across from that neighborhood business zone. And that could also be included in a future study of this Nike Hill area. And basically all the properties surrounding that neighborhood activity center. So going to Queensboro Brentwood Crystal Springs. It's a 898-acre sub-area. It comprises 800. Potential changes include, again, housekeeping amendments, other amendments reflecting your area-wide element recommendations, and one property owner request submitted last week, and I'm going to take a break here just to pass that up to you and to turn on the dais lights. Apologize, I didn't mean to leave you in the dark there. As you see, this is a very cursory request, and I did reply and kind of outlined the process and what we might consider with regard to this request, and asked Mr. Malik. This is a request from Bashir Malik, who owns that corner property, to submit something a little more detailed to us. And I haven't received anything. I also suggested that he come tonight and make his request in person. So I don't really know if Mr. Malik is going to push forward on this. So my inclination would be to include it in a study of that Nike Hill area for potential future rezone, but not to make initiate any rezone action at this point. Mr. Malik owns the property right at the corner. In his email, he indicated that he would like to be able to do a fourplex on that property, which would require R2800 zoning. But other less dense alternatives could be considered. We have R5400D across the street, so R5400A might be an option. R4000 might be an option. But again, without getting anything further back from Mr. Malik, I also asked him to discuss this with the owners of the neighboring properties, because we would, in all likelihood, want to include at least those 4 parcels on the corner, and quite possibly the parcel just to the north in the white outline there. So staff isn't prepared at this point to suggest an actual land use designation amendment at this time, but that could be part of the Nike Hill discussion. So then finally, the Maywood-Beckstrom Hill sub-area. It also comprises 898 acres. And again, potential changes include housekeeping amendments and other amendments to reflect your recommendations on the planning area-wide elements. We have not received any property owner amendment requests to date. Oops. So that actually concludes my presentation. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions, and then public testimony if you're ready for that.
Great. Hey, thanks, Dave. So just preliminarily, do you need any type of motion from us on either the boundary changes, the land use designations? I think it was in the first sub-area. Do you need any guidance from us at this point to approve moving forward with that?
What we would need is and we're not making any recommendations for amending the land use designations at this time. We're suggesting that adding a policy and action stating that this area, the Nike Hill area, is an area that should be studied further for potential rezones and greater urban densities, and that would not require the noticing at this time. When we got around, if that study wound up recommending changes, that would happen at that time. So, but if Planning Commission does wish to initiate any land use designation changes, then you should let us know now so we can do the proper noticing.
I was thinking specifically, not of the Nike Hill property in my question. There's other, kind of up in the upper right-hand corner of, it was in the first sub-area that we looked at.
The boundary changes?
Yeah.
No, I think those are, at least at this point, Country Village probably will include some rezone actions, but I think it's appropriate to leave that to the discussion on the Country Village sub-area.
Okay.
Canyon Park, I don't know that there will be any, in that corner, any changes in the designation. It already has the RAC designation. So that would just be a sub-area boundary change, which again, doesn't require any noticing.
Let me just pause here. Is there any discussion by any of the Planning Commission questions or discussion with regards to not the Nike Hill, but the other potential changes to the boundary of the sub-area as well as some of the land use designation? Any questions or comments on that? Commissioner Vliet.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe. It sounds like maybe you're alluding to that little part of Country Village that we maybe.
Correct.
That we don't need to take any action to maybe move that over or make a motion.
Yeah, I'm just asking kind of procedurally whether we need to kind of weigh in on that and approve that or not.
Well, we would welcome any initial thoughts you have about the recommendation to revisit those boundaries and include those in the discussions of the Country Village and Canyon Park sub-areas. But
Okay.
I don't think we need to take any action per se this evening.
I can tell you, and I'd open this up just to everybody, I have no objection to either the changing of the boundary of the sub-area or I think you were talking about, on that slide, expanding the RAC designation to the north a little bit. Is that what you were thinking?
Well, actually, the RAC does extend into
Okay.
this area, and for some reason, the sub-area boundary doesn't even follow the zoning boundaries as it usually does. So
Okay.
we think it would make sense to at least include all that RAC in Canyon Park and potentially the OP as well.
Okay, great. So, I would say from our standpoint, please move forward with doing that. With regards to Nike Hill, it was on October 15th, we had and I don't remember, Dave, if you were here or not, but we had a pretty considerable discussion on that. And we actually gave a motion to do further study on this and to look at what potential other developments or use in terms of either open space, park, other types of commercial uses for that particular parcel. So you have the support from us to go forward with that. My question for you would be kind of around timeline. So kind of set some expectations for us with regards to staff bandwidth to be able to conduct this study, and also including this fourplex request in that overall study. Is that what you were suggesting?
Yes.
I don't think there'd be any objection to including that as part of it. So kind of give us an idea of just kind of timeline on how long it would take and what would be entailed there.
Our recommendation is that since we don't actually need the population capacity for the Snohomish County growth target, and also since we haven't heard directly from any of the actual property owners here, and because we really, at least as part of this planning code update, we have our hands full with the work that needs to be done in Canyon Park and Country Village, which we are going to be using for the Snohomish County growth targets, that we're not suggesting that the study be done as part of this planning code amendment, just that we add it as a policy and an action for future study. I think it could happen. We haven't really projected what our work load is going to be after this major planning code update effort, but the next opportunity to actually make comprehensive plan amendments will be in 2016. So it could potentially be part of the 2016 docket and then come back to Planning Commission that year for further study.
Are there any questions or comments with regards to timeline on a further study of Nike Hill?
Not
Mr.
necessarily timeline, but I gotta say, I think it's pretty short-sighted to look at the Canyon Park and the Country Village areas as meeting the additional 3,400 plus or minus housing units when there are significant traffic issues in that area already. I don't know what the solution is that we're planning by just putting another 3,400 homes right there when clearly we have 115, 120 acres that are being underutilized, underdeveloped, that are in the northwest corner of this area. So from my perspective, I'd like to see that done sooner rather than later.
Any other questions? Commissioner Cabe?
Yeah, when we looked at it the first time around, I thought we were initially looking just at the 41-acre FEMA property, not necessarily the whole contiguous 100-plus acres. I live adjacent to this property to the south, and Mr. Harmon, your report kind of included some information with that area, but like all that forested area, tons of ravines. It's worth a walk just to see exactly what you'd be getting into. I agree the flat portion on the top of the hill makes a lot of sense. I mean, it sort of suits itself for development, but yeah, I was in support of turning some of the DNR property adjacent to the Shelton View Elementary into a park that would be a Bothell Park where you could either do active or passive development and get more people in there. So yeah, I was just curious, David, on what out of all these sections we're looking at the further study would consist of. Is it just the entire thing? There's so many different players involved, I guess, with
Yeah. Well, I think the scope could be better defined later, but I think I was going on what has been put on the table to date, which would be all of these properties, and then potentially also the Queensboro property, and as far as, and I think there can be some more discussion of this in terms of the overall growth targets. Land use is going to be coming back to you again next week. So I'm just going by what Gary has indicated their thoughts are in terms of the Snohomish County growth targets. But certainly understand the comment.
Any other questions or comments? I think the only thing that I would add, and we can move on, in that is that I think the growth targets were part of what we were thinking about, but I think it was more than that. It was really highest and best use of this land. Now and the study may come back and go, we recommend some of these areas, like Commissioner Cabe mentioned, that they're the way they're geographically oriented, that the current use is the highest and best use, and it may be open space or turned into a park. And but I just like to see that land just get some planning attention, and if there are areas that could have further residential or commercial development, we'd like to explore that. But at the same time, it very well could be that parts of it are going to be designated open space or park. So those are just kind of my comments. I think the only thing that I would like to see would be, just from a time frame standpoint, 2016, I really would like to see this move up. And I recognize that here we are at the last quarter of 2014, and we're thoroughly entrenched in this comprehensive plan, and we need to stay focused on that. But I would like to see that on our, early 2015 agenda. So, and I don't know if there's any other comments on that with regard to Commissioner Bleet.
I guess I would just like to see it stick with maybe the staff recommendation of being proposed in the 2016 docket.
So you'd prefer it taking longer, of stretching out of that?
Yeah, just kind of staying focused on what we have to do by the middle of next year, and giving staff some more time. And I think they're probably pretty maxed out. And it sounds like the recommendations were to wait till 2016. So I guess I would choose to stick with staff's recommendation on that.
Any other comments?
I have a clarifying question. What does a study mean? What part do we?
Well, even the Canyon Park sub-area, where we are going to be making some land use designation changes, again, to, in part to address the Snohomish County growth targets, we're not, as part of this plan and code update, we're not proposing a full-blown master plan similar to what we did with the downtown sub-area there. We're, with the plan and code update, we're establishing the framework for that, for a future more detailed planning effort. But we are making some zoning changes there. Similarly, in Country Village, I don't know that Country Village is going to warrant or need a more comprehensive planning effort. So it would be perhaps similar to that. And so one thing that we could, even short of doing any land use designation amendments, we if Planning Commission wanted us to come back with some sort of framework policies, beyond just doing a study, we could potentially look into that. Another thing I can, in terms of the timeline, the planning, I guess it's possible that the Planning Commission, your work on the Plan and Code update is going to wrap up in the early part of next year. So you'll have some capacity there. We'll be taking it on to City Council. But in terms of making comprehensive plan changes, which any rezone is in Bothell, next year, we can only change the comprehensive plan once a year. Next year, that will be the major plan and code update. So we could start doing the work on further planning for this sub-area ahead of 2016, but the actual code amendments that would be adopted would happen as part of the 2016 annual code amendments. That would be the earliest that we could actually finalize it.
So I think I'd like us to provide some clarification for Dave with regards to kind of our intentions as far as, I think we've been clear on that we'd like this study to occur. So let's just be clear on how rapidly we'd like it to take place. And I think he's saying that kind of as we wrap up our work on the comprehensive plan, it could be brought onto our agenda next year. I think I'd like us to just take a real quick vote on that. Could I hear a motion to the effect of our recommendation of this study occurring on our 2015 agenda?
I make a motion that we direct staff to, or ask staff to conduct this study at the earliest possible time frame, which I believe would be in 2015.
Is there a second?
Can I ask a clarifying question on that? What does this study include? Is it just a decision of whether or not to flip the zoning, or are there more things, traffic or other things that are included in that?
I have some thoughts, but I'll let
Just want to
Dave.
know what I'm voting on.
Yeah, I'll let Dave answer that.
It would have to include also traffic, some study of traffic infrastructure. I think it would clearly have to address the desire that we've heard from neighbors for a park in that area. What I hear from the Parks Department is that their focus right now through PROSAP is on other filling gaps in other parts of the Snohomish County area, Fitzgerald and Thrasher's Corner, Red Hawk, but I don't know that that's cast in stone. That's what the plan currently, the adopted plan currently states. But if an opportunity arose, I think it's possible. So I think there'd be some parks and open space planning or component to that plan as well. The other thing is a lot of this area is pretty heavily constrained with critical areas, streams and steep slopes, which actually, in terms of development capacity, could mean that intensifying the zoning so that the development can be clustered might make a lot of sense. So I think that's another thing that we'd be looking at is whether that type, a different type of zoning would be more conducive to actually, in the long term, preserving some of that open space area. So,
Does that give you what you're looking for?
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so we currently have the motion on the table to move the study of the land use and designation and planning for this particular parcel to our 2015 agenda. Is there a second to the motion?
Just a question process.
Yep.
Dave, through this process, this owner or the comprehensive plan change, I guess is what we're looking at, I guess we call this. How many of these do we have in the city right now? I mean, so if are we just saying we're going to do this one for 15, or are we going to take all the owners, and treat them equitably and say, hey, we want all these comprehensive plan changes to be done at the same time, or?
Well, I believe the Planning Commission has agreed to at least consider and directed staff to do some analysis and make some recommendations on some rezones that came from property owner requests. This one is a little bit different in that, again, like I said, we haven't heard directly from any of the property owners, and also it's the scope of this one is beyond, the other property owner initiated requests we've got. So it really is the commission's call on which of these you choose to try to wrap into our current plan and code update.
Okay, that's fine.
Do we want to see a list of all the other rezone or designation requests in front of the Planning Commission or in front of staff at this point?
Well, my question is that as any owner comes in here, they submit them. There's a criteria they have to meet, and they submit them, and then they come, and then the council passes them along to us and say, hey, these are the ones that we think are important that you guys should review, and then they're usually reviewed in a basket, and we do them all. You do them all once a year because we're only supposed to do comprehensive plan changes once a year, and this is the big piece, and I don't have any opinion on the piece right now because it's sitting there, and like I said, I haven't heard from the owner yet or anybody represented it, and I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I was just curious. This is, for us to step up and say, hey, we like this piece and we think it's important that we review it early next year. It's just a little different, but I'm not opposed to that, especially since it looks like we're going to be having our docket's going to be clear. Let's do some work.
Yeah.
Can I suggest we hear from one of the property owner?
I was going to suggest that it'd be good to at least from staff perspective, I haven't had a chance to discuss this with Mr. Harmon, so perhaps he has more information to shed on what he's proposing.
Sure. I mean, perhaps this is the right point in our meeting for you to speak. So,
Appreciate the
yep.
opportunity.
Just introduce yourself and also where you live.
Thank you. Michael Harmon, President, Coast Equity Partners, property owner of one of the parcels in this Nike Hill development. It's the interior wooded parcel immediately south of the condominium development. These don't have physical addresses, so I can't really point you to that, but we're identifying, if I can, I'll step up to this for the record. Our ownership is this parcel right here. Coast Equity Partners has owned that parcel. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So Coast Equity Partners has owned that parcel 2006, 2007 timeframe. When I was before you all 2 weeks ago, I came with a broader, asking you for consideration of a broad collection of parcels, 5 of them totaling over 120 acres, 97 acres in your city limits. And I think we all know the parcels that I'm kind of calling broadly this Nike Hill neighborhood. They include that small strip of land on the boundary over here on Meridian, this large FEMA site here, the CEP, Coast Equity Partners site here, and the Washington Parks Department, it appears, is the named owner of this parcel down in here, which is adjacent to the school. These are all undeveloped or underdeveloped parcels that are sitting in your city boundaries, again, totaling inside your city limits just under 100 acres. This is a significant, opportunity for the Planning Commission to take a look at this site. And I've listened to you all tonight, and I'm grateful to hear you are encouraged to do just that, to study this site and this collection of parcels, to see if you can maybe imagine a more creative result for this neighborhood than just having this default to R9600 residential lots. This site, this area, has a lot of interesting geography to it. It's, has some flat areas up on top with the FEMA site. It has some incredible view opportunities on our site and on the Parks Department property that look out across Lake Washington to the Seattle city skyline, that can look all the way out to the Cascade Mountains. These are some impressive lands, and yes, they come with some challenges. There's a reason why some of these are still open areas, because these are tough to build on, right? That's why they're the last in the city to be developed. Let's be frank about that. That's the reality of these parcels. It doesn't mean they're not going to get developed. They are going to get developed, and probably sooner than later, given the demand that we're all feeling. I mean, as you all are addressing your capacity planning issues because of the growth that's coming, believe me, folks want to live in your city, and they're going to want to take advantage of the opportunities to live close in that these parcels provide. So why let them, we ought to think about how to do more appropriate zoning to create a better neighborhood focus here. This has a chance to be something more than just another R9600 residential development. And I'm not bad-mouthing that development style. I'm just merely suggesting that you have an opportunity to think more creatively about what's possible there. Now, I came to you as a property owner, but I guess I'm discussing something more than my own property, my own interests, because we have investments in your city and other places as well. I'm merely trying to represent good citizen activism to say, hey, take a look at it. So I encourage you to do that. This area could be, wonderful neighborhood amenity. Have commercial uses for sure. Have a mix of residential uses. Have open space, active parks. This is all possible right here in this 100 acres. And I encourage you to really think about that. Now, I'm nervous as a citizen, wondering if you set this aside today, because you're doing this great work of comprehensive planning and it's involving capacity planning. That's all happening today, and you're choosing to put all your capacity in one corner of the city where it's already burdened. You've already got too much going on 527, and you're going to add more. I'm suggesting today you have an opportunity right now to ask yourselves, can we direct some capacity towards this area, change the zoning in here in some intelligent, creative way in collaboration with your great planning staff, and come up with something that allows some of that capacity to be spread around and located here. That gives you a chance, as Dave alluded to increase the densities and thereby probably and most certainly open up the area for more open space. This is one of your biggest problems in this part of the city. You don't have enough active park space. It's been written on many, many times in all of your comprehensive plans. This area needs those active parks and open space. It deserves it. It needs more amenities in terms of commercial development so that this neighborhood has some amenities right here close so they don't have to travel again to a heavily trafficked 527 corridor to get their basic services. This area also is serviced differently than those other developments. The principal way you get in and out of these neighborhoods is on Meridian, down south into the Bothell Everett Highway, down in the Kenmore area, or down Locust Way to 61st, and a lot of that traffic ends up moving west and on to jobs in the Seattle area. So this is another place where you can add some density and have the traffic patterns be not force everything back to this already congested corridor. I think that's vital. So that's why I brought it to your attention, is to say, in this time, while you're doing this great work, don't ignore your opportunity to make some creative choices here about zoning, move some density, some capacity into this area, and give yourselves a chance to imagine a much, much more interesting neighborhood. I don't know if I'm confusing the commission by standing up here addressing you as an advocate for an entire neighborhood when I own a piece of property in that neighborhood. And if it would help the commission to have a more actionable step to take today than sort of this big, wow, we got 100 acres to think about, maybe we ought to just push that off to tomorrow. If there was something you could do today, I think all I can do is represent my own. It was made clear in the comments that the landowner needs to make a recommendation or ask for some specific action to be taken on their property. So Coast Equity Partners piece, this 16.5 acres, is adjacent to a condominium development that has much, much higher density. This is, I think under your code today, this would be classed as R2200, something like that. This is significant density here. It's at least, I don't know, I'd have to do the study, but it's high density development. It's a condominium complex. So if I had to come to you as a landowner and make a specific request, I would say that this parcel should be zoned similarly to how this one was developed, so that you can continue on and provide more capacity on a smaller footprint in this 16.5 acres and give everyone an opportunity to extend the amount of open space that can then be dedicated back to the city to meet some of these desired open space goals that we all have. As a landowner, I'm prepared to see that kind of vision happen. And that does two things immediately in this planning session. It brings capacity into this area and moves some of it away from the 527 corridor, and specifically links this property to its neighbor, which is already high density. And then as you consider more broadly the Nike Hill area, then I think you can do some more imaginative zoning. Maybe that's put off for next year's plan, to do more with the FEMA site, the Meridian frontage, and this important DNR piece that we've talked about too, that kind of connects to the south end of the sub area. Again,
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up maybe in
so again,
1
I'm
minute.
not well versed in your processes, but if you're asking for the landowner to make a specific request of council, of commission, I'd say that rezone of our site today to something that's equivalent to its neighbor to the north will give you the capacity you're looking for in this comp plan, and bring some of it to a neighborhood that's underserved, and gives you a future path to rezone around it to create a more interesting neighborhood.
Great,
Okay.
thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Harmon?
Yeah, I did have one. I just want to make sure that I understand what you're bringing up here. So part of this is a zoning residential, right? But is there also a commercial element to be able to create a commercial center in there so that people aren't driving to Canyon Park?
Correct. And I'm not suggesting, I'm suggesting that somewhere in that larger group of parcels, you ought to consider that, because this is really unique property that could serve you very well in that way, so that you pull some neighborhood services closer to this area that's quite frankly underserved with services. This is the area where you're expanding, and considering you're considering annexing more of the property to that corner, and so again, you've got an opportunity to serve that community better with both commercial resources that might fit best on Nike Hill, on the FEMA side or the Meridian site. You've got an opportunity to increase capacity that might work best on our site. You've got an opportunity to generate some open space, some active parks with all of this land. And so that's the real good planning work that could be done. But again, as a specific landowner, I guess if I'm asking for action from the commission, it's to look at the zoning specifically on our property and have it mimic what's to the north of us, so that we can, we can bring development in that has a more economical footprint and keeps more open space for use by the city. I think that's a good outcome of what you're doing in today's planning, because you're talking about capacity and how to distribute it across the Snohomish County area. That's a site that can do that for you and give you open space that you desire.
Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Vliet.
I just had a quick question for Dave. So on the second page of the memorandum, part of the reason maybe the comment I had earlier was such, is it said because the proponent does not currently own or have control over the properties? Is that incorrect then on the second page?
Well, the proposal that we had didn't make it clear, and I wasn't successful in making contact with Mr. Harmon before that, but apparently that is, in fact, I mean, I don't dispute that Coast Equity does have control of that parcel.
Thanks.
One thing I have a question. Have you had any or made any effort to contact any of the other property owners in that area?
Yes. Yes, I have. So the park site immediately south of us, again, on records it shows Washington Parks Department owns that site. I don't know if that's, I kind of refer to it generally as DNR, but we have made contact with them multiple times throughout the years. Their desire is to find a private party that will complete a land swap with them so that they can get out of this, what they consider to be an urban forested area that isn't going to be an active site for them, into some revenue-producing property. So their idea was, you go find us, a commercial building someplace that is a single-tenant building that's very easy to manage, that generates cash flow, and we will, establish values and do a swap so that we can get out of this property and into something that produces revenue for the state. That's been expressed multiple times. It came to light last in 2007, 2008, of course, right into a significant recession, and those conversations all ended then, because this is a large site. It's going to take significant development resources to make it happen. So that's what I know about that site. I've not approached the government around the FEMA site, and nor the Meridian Peace out front. The one that's just outside of your boundary, which is owned by the Furling Corporation, that's designated on the map here again as an R2800, again much higher density than the neighboring site here, and more in line with what's already in place here. Those folks have an intent to sell. They are a seller. We've been in long conversations with them, and their desire is to sell to a multi-family development exit. So they view that as a multifamily site. They want to build apartments there, or see apartments get built there. We all know that's an active gravel, sort of sand and gravel exchange that's going on there. They first excavated it, now they've filled it, now they're just sort of moving material through it. But they are a seller. So you will see development on your west end soon. To the south, DNR site, if there's a developer of scale that can find an equitable swap for them, they appear to be also interested. Our site would be developed as R9600, and then the FEMA site appears to be R9600 already, and whenever the government feels they've finished the use of that site, that's likely what it would become.
Thank you. Any other questions? So I think my point in this has been that I've had a chance to spend a considerable amount of time in that area, talking to a great number of the homeowners over the past year, and my belief is that there would be significant citizen benefit to a lot of the proposed changes that are being described, both a kind of a conscious use of the open spaces so that we really have just made good determination as to whether it's an open space or a park, but then also something a little more innovative than R9600, either from a commercial standpoint or some more creative residential options as well. So I've heard that, and from a timing standpoint, rather than, I'm really not thinking of giving this special treatment. What I've not understood is that we're already doing this for Country Village now. I mean, we're kind of down the road in terms of what we're thinking of Country Village. We're adding capacity and zoning changes in Canyon Park already. I'm kind of saying, why would we exclude this right now? Why not treat it equitably as another one of the pieces that we are already considering for capacity increase? So I'm really asking not for special treatment for this, but for kind of equitable treatment. That's would be my argument. So I thank you very much, Mr. Harmon.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So I think I'd just like us to kind of provide staff with some kind of clear direction as to, I think you've heard kind of our comments, but, so we have a motion on the table. Commissioner Stahl was considering seconding it. I don't know if you have any more questions. Or?
I'll second it.
All right, then I don't know if we need to restate the motion or not, but I think we really are basically understand that we're looking at just moving forward in 2015 with the idea of studying this in kind of a similar way as we are already with Country Village and Canyon Park. So all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay.
So,
And
Can I ask a point of clarification, just so citizens can have some expectation? Thank you. So, is what you just is the proposal that you just voted on going to try to move the study and whatever ultimately would come of that in the same timeline as what you're doing with Country Village and Canyon Park?
Canyon Park, yes.
Yes. Thank you. Just
Yes,
wanted
it
that
is.
point of clarification.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I will.
Do you have any questions or comment on that, Dave?
Well, I just wanted to say that as far as the question of treating this in similar way that we're treating Canyon Park and Country Village, I really have to defer to Gary, and he can address that when he brings the land use element back to you next week, and so we'll have some internal discussions and perhaps a little something more to add to our response next week.
Absolutely, fair enough. And if there are some things that we haven't considered this evening that we should, then ask Gary to bring that forward in our meeting next week. I think with the point being, there's a lot of, we see benefit here. We've heard from one of the property owners, and study means just that. Let's just really put the light on it and make some really active decisions on it. So yeah, ask Gary to come next week with any further feedback for us on this.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So we've spent a considerable amount of commission time on that issue. I think we're ready to move on. And Dave, I know you actually went through all three of the sub-area plans, and so I think what I'm going to ask is just, are there any questions or comments on any of the three sub-area plans for Dave now? And what we really have right now is our kind of initial presentation. There's going to be another opportunity for us to review these. Is that correct?
Yes. So, and I do have the actual plan, sub-area plan language available if you want to look at that. We can do that, or if you just want to highlight any particular comments that you'd like to be fleshed out, or any questions that you have about the changes that are proposed to date. Also, I wanted to say that Mr. and Mrs. Malik are here now, and they had some difficulty finding the meeting location, so they may want to speak to their proposal as well.
Yeah, I did see that they joined us. Why don't we do want to hear from you, but at this point, let's stay on the three sub-area plans. You will have an opportunity to speak to us, in the next step of our agenda. So, are there any questions, comments, feedback for staff with regards to any of the three plans? Commissioner Vliet.
Yes, on MB 13, there's on number 2, it says erect signage to designate, I guess, bike routes. And I guess it has 23rd Avenue Southeast, but it doesn't include 104th Avenue Northeast. Is that because there's maybe already signage there?
I believe so, but I'll take a closer look at that one. then.
Any other questions? No.
Can you give me the specific citation again?
MB 13.
On page NB 13?
Yes.
Okay.
Bullet point number 2.
Okay.
Hearing or seeing no other questions from any other commissioners, I do have some questions. So this is on the Maywood plan. There is a reference on MB1 to a wetland system and a potential development of a trail skirting the area between Lake Pleasant and Canyon Park. This is the first I'd heard of that. Can you give us any history on that and what? It sounds intriguing. My overall initial reaction is positive, but I'd just like to hear a little bit more about what's behind that.
And I'm actually doing some additional research on that myself. The trail that shows up on our transportation element as a proposed bike and pedestrian facility is not actually in the Maywood sub-area. The proposal is for a trail that would connect from the Bothell Everett Highway somewhere in that Country Village, Red Barn Village, more in the Red Barn Village area, down and then along the Lake Pleasant area, and then there is a street right away. It's at some point in this area it picks up a right away. I shouldn't say a street right away. Looks more like an alley right away that heads north south and skirts along the wetlands in the valley floor. That's a suggestion that came, I don't know if it was in the last round of the plan update or a previous one, and I still want to get some more information on that and whether it's something that we still feel is a feasible alternative. So that may or may not stay in here. And in any case, if it does stay in here, it should a portion of it would skirt the sub area, but it's on the other side of the wetland, so it really is more germane to the Country Village sub area. It would serve that area to a greater degree. So that's kind of a question mark. There was a note box about the all of the transportation element of the sub area that's in review and as part of the overall transportation planning area wide element. And so I'm still getting some comments back on that. So there will be some other updates. In fact, that bike route might be part of those updates.
Great. Thank you. And then another question I had, this is on Queensboro, the Queensboro sub-area plan, so this would be QB9. This is just more of a structural question, but we are striking the community services portion of that, but what we've done, at least in the other sub-area plans, is add some of that to housing and human services, but I didn't see that in that particular plan, that there was a housing element to add what we're striking there under community services. And I just thought I'd bring that to your attention and see if we do want to add a housing and human services element to that particular sub-area plan.
There is. It's on the top of page QB8. And I know there was a...
Yes, I didn't have QB8 in our packet, so that must have...
Is that true of all of your... the hard
Yeah.
copy?
In fact, I'll tell you, we don't have actually QB 1 through 8 in our packet.
Okay.
So there's kind of
And I apologize for that. That was entirely my mistake. The one that I passed on last Thursday for distribution was missing those 8 pages, and then I followed up with an email with the revised packet that included those pages, and I thought that then on Monday morning, that was discovered late Friday afternoon. On Monday, they swapped out the packets in the mailbox. So if you picked up your packets over the weekend, you were missing those pages. So I apologize for that. I encourage you to, if you want a hard copy and don't want to go to your mailbox, you can grab one of the ones here at the back of the room.
not a problem. That sounds fine. Those are really the only questions I had. Hearing none from any of the other Planning Commission members, let's, at this point, wrap up that part of our agenda, which is on the review of the 3 sub-area plans, but keep our public hearing open at this point to hear from, if this is the opportunity, if you'd like to come and speak in any way to us, this is the chance to do it. If not, that's fine. We have seen your email with regards to your request. This is with regards to the fourplex. So if this is your chance. If you'd like to add any additional information to us as to what's behind your request, this is an opportunity to do that. Certainly not necessary. Please come forward. If you'd like to come forward, give us your name and address.
And since you weren't here for the presentation, this is the slide that I showed showing your property and describing that if we were to look at a rezone here, we would most likely want to look at least these 4 parcels and likely also this parcel to the north. So please feel free to come up to the podium and make any further comments.
Actually, a week ago, I just stopped by the city hall to see what could probably change in that area. I've owned that property for 29 years. I've been a layman or a laborer, frankly, not well versed with how things are done. So I thought there was a good opportunity to go and observe rather than come and speak on the podium. But anyway, as a single resident, that when I bought it, it was a very quiet area. And probably I would have liked to live there myself. But since the things have changed a lot, but as the time goes by, it becomes less and less attractive to build a house in that area. So I was hoping, could change to some other zoning where more people could live. And when I was told, that it requires so much land to convert it into a fourplex, I'm sure if the road wasn't widened on both sides of my property, which left me probably with 1/3 less property than I had. But anyway, as it is, I think I would request that somehow this zoning should be changed, because over the years my rent has gone down and down rather than going up, because not too many people want to live there. So maybe an apartment might be a little, or whatever, to a fourplex or something, would be more attractive to newer, younger people with no families or so forth. And for that purpose, I don't know how to request that, it should be considered for other than what it is.
Thanks very much. So I have a couple questions. And you say you've owned it for 29 years.
Yeah.
And at least in your email, it's primarily around rental and economic development. And so you're thinking from the standpoint of just rental income and
Yes.
it.
See, I'm almost 70 years old, and with about $800, $900 coming through Social Security, I was hoping that one day it will generate me a little more.
Sure, understood. Just broadening it out a little bit more in terms of just both the transportation access to the property, the aesthetics of it. We're interested in kind of highest and best use of the land, and so I think that, is there anything else you can tell us with regards to
Not
what
really.
you think
I'm
would
not
be good for the use of this land, other
I've
than?
never been into this kind of situation before where I had to plead a case or even know much about it, how the process is done.
Okay.
And
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions?
you know, when you say you need transportation, does that mean having to take more land out of that?
Well, with regards to changing and adding more capacity, there's usually going to be the need for additional parking. There could be additional need for additional transportation access. There's just a lot of other factors. I mean, certainly, for it to be able to produce more rental income is one aspect of it, but we're trying to make sure we look at this as comprehensively as possible. It's just kind of what it is that the impacts would be on that particular piece.
I wonder, is there anybody who can help me with it? Because I have no idea. I was told, you know, in the email, probably came through you, to come with a little more elaborate, you know, what I had to present. And frankly, I couldn't. You know, I had a hard time writing that email.
Well, I guess I would say this is enough to get us started, and staff can look at it further, and there probably will be other questions that we'll have for you down the road. So,
Okay.
So, yeah, Dave.
I do have one question, the same question I asked of Mr. Harmon. Have you discussed this at all with any of the other property owners?
No, actually, I didn't get a chance. I called the number I had, and it's been changed, so I don't know if the same owner.
That's a good question, because that's one of there's kind of quite a process we have to go through. There has to be a public announcement. There has to be an opportunity for the public to provide feedback on it and make sure that we've really heard from all the stakeholders with regards to this piece of property. But
Okay.
we'll follow that process. So,
All right.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. Oh, and just to follow up, what we've decided to do is, as Dave mentioned, continue to look at that, but more in the greater context of some parcels surrounding it, and also we have some other property that we're looking at this point as well. So that's been our decision, is to evaluate this further in the context of some other properties that we have in front of us right now. All right. So at this point, we need to have a motion to continue our public hearing.
Yeah, and I wanted to clarify that last comment. So you would put this in together with the properties in.
Well, yeah, good point. I mean, I think I heard that in your presentation, Dave, but maybe clarify for us what staff is recommending with regards to this particular request. I know you went through that, but just take 30 seconds and clarify that for us.
Well, I guess what I had recommended was, in light of doing a longer-term study, following the periodic plan and code update study of the area, that one option would be to include this with the other Nike Hill properties. But if you want to move forward with consideration of actual zoning changes in that area, in that broader area, and include this, then that means that we're in the mode of having to do determine what the proposed zoning changes would be, and then do notification. So if that's what your recommendation is, I think we might. I would actually want to wait until you can discuss this in the broader context of the land use element next week, but then we can move forward to do the noticing, if that's what's.
So since the land use element's next week, why don't you ask if you could go back and ask Gary to include that as part of the overall land use and kind of how we might handle that going forward into 2015.
Okay.
Thank you. But I do think we need to, just as we move forward on our agenda, have a motion to continue the public hearing, if I could hear that.
Until which date?
To next week.
November 12th.
To November 12th.
Motion to continue the public hearing on the 2015 periodic plan and code update to November 12th.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Moving forward in our agenda, I don't believe we have any study session or old business, any reports from staff other than what we've discussed already?
Nope.
Any reports from, or comments from members? The only thing the only thing I just might clarify our calendar, we do have a meeting next week where we will continue our public hearing and periodic plan update. At this point, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
We are adjourned.